Okay, that's 11 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. This is Frank Coyle, President of Pointit, and I'd like to welcome you to our landing page success strategy webinar. This morning, my guest is Howard Sewell. He's President of Connect Direct. Good morning, Howard. How are you doing?
Good morning. Very well, thank you.
Okay, so just to clear up some logistics, you're going to hear two accents this morning. I have the strong, distinguished Scottish accent, and Howard, being my English compatriot, or enemy, I'm not sure which, he's the refined upper-class voice you might hear from time to time. Okay, let's get going with just get some of the details out up front. Pointit, as many of you know, is a Seattle search-based marketing firm. We've been around since 2002, probably at this point Seattle's oldest independent search marketing firm. Our focus is on pay-per-click and SEO, and we service clients across many verticals, including software companies, e-commerce companies, finance as well. Howard, can you give us a quick overview on Connect Direct?
Happy to. Just in brief, we're a full-service marketing agency. We specialize in demand gen and lead management for high-tech companies. All of our clients are B2B high-tech firms. We've been around since 1990. And we develop, execute, and manage direct response strategies and programs that range from search to email to webinars, online advertising, and a lot of work in the lead nurturing and lead management area. Two offices, one in Seattle and the other in Silicon Valley. And we work with companies small and large, including some of the bigger names that you see there on the slide. And we've been named one of the top agencies in the country the last 3 years by B2B Magazine.
And yeah, thanks, Howard. And the reason I invited Howard along this morning was to get an additional perspective on landing page optimization. We do that as one of our services. Howard does as well, but I think it's good for companies to just hear two perspectives. We share many of the same thoughts. We bring different experiences to the table, and that's what we'll share with you this morning. As far as the agenda is concerned, what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a sort of alternate way of looking at landing pages or a landing page definition. We'll go through many of the principles and checklists that we recommend our customers use when developing landing pages. And we're going to be looking at a number of examples this morning to point out, what works in our mind, what doesn't work. And as part of the invitation, the webinar invitation, we actually invited attendees to submit their landing pages to be critiqued live on the air, and we had several of those. We appreciate everything that came in. We weren't able to critique all of them, but we'll be doing some of those at the end. And of course, questions are welcome. You'll see in the GoToWebinar menu, there's a place that you can type in questions. Please feel free to go to do that. We'll answer them at the end. I did have one question that came in just before it started. One person asked, would this be recorded because they had to leave after 30 minutes? And yes, we will record it. We will send it out. But hang in there because I think you're going to enjoy what's coming. Okay, let's start off with the landing page definition. Coincidentally, I was at an ad club meeting in Seattle yesterday. It was all the TV agencies were there talking about television advertising. And one thing they mentioned resonated very strongly with landing page optimization. And they were talking about the effectiveness of TV advertising. And one gentleman said, we can send as much traffic as you may like through television advertising into the stores, but in the end, it's really only as good as how that customer is served when they get into the store. And I thought that's a great point, and really that's what I think landing pages are all about. So the way I kind of like to think of landing pages is possibly your most highly paid salesperson. And the reason I say that is because when you look at how much you spend on pay-per-click, it could be thousands, it could be tens of thousands. In some of our clients, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. That is all being driven. That traffic is all being driven to a landing page, and within 2 or 3 seconds, that customer makes a decision to stay or to leave. So when you think of it that way, and you correlate it to how would you deal with a salesperson or even your sales team, what do you do with them? You train them, you're continually training them, you're monitoring, you're measuring your success. But oftentimes when I talk with clients, I don't see that same attention as they would if it were a salesperson. And so what I encourage people to do is to think of the landing page as somebody or this entity that you're going to keep on testing and training and making better, and it's an ongoing thing. I spoke to one client once who said, "Oh, great! Once we get this landing page done, then we're done. We're finished, and we can move on to something else." And I said, "No. This is just the start of an everlasting experience." So that's one different viewpoint on landing pages that I think is worth looking at. All right, let's move in now to Howard's section of the webinar. Howard, you've got some principles that you always keep in mind when you're attacking landing pages.
Yeah, these are just a short list of basic principles and philosophies that we bring to bear when we're designing landing pages as part of larger campaigns for clients, and I wanted to kind of summarize them in brief. The first is focusing the visitor on one compelling offer. We'll talk in a second about studies that have been done about the effectiveness of presenting one versus multiple offers. But the one thing that we always preach to clients is to really focus on whether it be a webinar, free trial, download, white paper, registration, whatever the desired action is, focus all the copy and design on driving that one offer. And if you do anything more than that, you run the risk of sort of distracting the visitor and reducing conversion rates as a result. The second is a big one, and it applies, frankly, not just to landing pages, but to emails and even just direct response marketing in general. But we use this all the time, and it's sell the offer, not the product. I think one of the pitfalls that many companies fall into is using landing pages as a means of convincing people why their company and product is the best thing since sliced bread. And if you consider the goal of a landing page, for the most part, is to drive conversions, to drive leads, whatever the end objective is, then really the way to do that is to sell the offer, i.e. the carrot or the thing at the end of the day you want someone to register for, and again, drive all the copy and design towards convincing people that that offer is something that's worth their time, worth their contact information, worth their filling out the form, and have everything else, i.e. why your company and product is so great, be secondary. Because though that may leave people with warm and fuzzy feelings about your company, it's not necessarily supporting you in your goal of driving registrations. The third, and related to the first two, is provide a very clear, simple, highly intuitive path to the desired action. And this goes to sort of design techniques, and when we look at some of the examples we'll be reviewing later, I think this will become more evident. But in general, the goal is to not present a cluttered page where it's not immediately evident where you want the person to go, and instead have, again, the one desired action be immediately clear and very direct. The fourth is minimizing escape routes. One of the things that we see a lot with client landing pages and in the market at large is landing pages that have, for example, nav bars at the top that are, because the landing page is being designed to the corporate web template. And those sorts of, I'll call them extraneous navigations, or any links that take people outside of the landing page, are almost certainly going to reduce conversion rates. A quick anecdote, we were reviewing some Google Analytics data from a client a couple of months ago, and they had a logo, their company logo, in the top corner of the landing page, and that logo was a link, as they often are, to the corporate homepage. And Google Analytics showed that fully 20% of the people that came to the landing page were escaping through that logo. And it just shows how even the most subtle link to somewhere other than the landing page can hurt conversions. Next, provide no more information the visitor needs in order to take the desired action. One of the challenges with PPC is that people aren't getting a lot of information on the front end, in other words, in the search ad. And so to some extent, you need to present a certain critical mass of information because it's likely that they don't know much about your product, your company, the offer quite yet. But depending on what you're asking the person to do, if you're asking them to register for a webinar, it's likely that you want to offer a little more information than if they're downloading a white paper. If they're registering for a free trial, or if it's an e-commerce landing page and you're asking someone to place an order, then you'll need to offer more information. So the amount of information has a lot to do with the offer being presented. And lastly, in the context of PPC specifically, one of the keys to landing page success is establishing a relevance with the search term. So in the ideal, someone searches for a term on Google, sees an ad that is related to that term, clicks on the ad, and sees a landing page that's related to that ad. And to the extent there's any disconnect along the way as part of that process, you'll lose people. And so part of, again, in the context of search, making a landing page successful is making sure that the copy is related very closely to the search term and the ad copy that you're using. Frank, over to you.
Actually, I think this one is still yours, Howard.
Well, yeah, this is the statistic. Thank you. This is the statistic that I was referencing earlier. Marketing Experiments is a industry analyst research firm. Many of you may be familiar with. They actually have a terrific newsletter that's worth signing up for, e-newsletter. They did a study. It's a couple of years ago, but I think it's highly relevant. They specialize in sales and marketing optimization, and they did a couple of research studies, one for an online computer retailer and the other for an online publisher, that tested head-to-head this idea of having a landing page focus on either one or two objectives. So, a sample scenario would be a landing page that says, here's the webinar that we want you to register for, but if you don't want to register for the webinar, here's a white paper that you can download. And what they showed, as these numbers reflect, is that having the landing page focus on one objective and one objective only increase conversions fairly substantially. And I think it's a good thing to keep in mind as you're designing landing pages going forward.
I think this is a great point. I once worked with a company, a software company, and the two founders were software engineers. And when we were doing a direct mail piece, they wanted, I think it was 4 different options in the direct mailer. And it sort of brings up the issue of that sometimes you're going to have to fight with either sales or upper management about what should be the objective and how many options should be on the landing page, and actually being able to pull out this relevant data. I think nothing speaks to test data like this for convincing people that no, it's just stick with one and don't do multiple, because when we have too many options, there is no option. We just
Right.
put it off. Okay, well we've talked a bit of theory here, so now what I'd like to do is show you an example. This is one of our clients. Company's called Door to Door. They're a moving and storage company. I highly recommend them, of course. They're down in Renton, but they were very gracious to let us show a before and after of their landing page makeover. If you would just want to briefly scan this, you can see some of the issues that Howard talked about. For example, we've got 2 phone numbers on the page. We've got the navigation bar. We've got links down the side we could go off to, which actually kind of mirror many of these along the top. And then, of course, there's the body here where we want to have some action taking place. We also have 2 ladies at the top. We have a testimonial. There's just a lot of stuff going on here. And so, the client recognized this was an issue, and at the turn of the year, they redesigned their website and came up with a new-looking landing page. And this actually went through a couple of small iterations I want to talk about, but briefly, here you'll see one phone number, very clear, it's get a free quote. Actually, sorry, phone numbers twice, but very prominent. All the extraneous links are now gone, and this improved their bounce rate that is basically reduced their bounce rate by over 35%, I mean, that's a huge amount just by making you didn't have to go to the extent of changing changing the website, but just changing that landing page put 35% more people through the funnel. Now, I said this had a couple of iterations. When they first launched it, the page looked exactly like this, except right here it had a little menu which said, like moving, storage, and a couple of other things. Well, what I did was I used Google Analytics. It has a tool called Site Overlay. Will actually tell you how many clicks, what percentage of the clicks are occurring in the different links of the page. And we found this navigation bar on the left-hand side over here, 26% of the clicks were there. So in other words, very similar to what Howard said a minute ago about the logo, people went elsewhere instead of going down here to get the free quote. So that's the kind of thing you can do with landing pages. What does it take? It takes some, good planning using some of the strategies that, some of the principles that Howard had just mentioned, and then just getting moving on it. And this is a checklist that I use when I'm working with clients on their landing pages. First of all, I want everything that's relevant to be above the fold. And above the fold means the fold is the bottom of the screen. And a common question is, what screen dimensions do you design for? It's 1024 is pretty much the standard, 1024 by 768, something like that, or 820. But 1024 is the main dimension. I always want the iFlow to lead to the target, and the target being, of course, the download now, submit now, etc. A great thing to do for iFlow is once you've created your landing page, have someone who's not seen it look at it. You stand behind the computer or their laptop and watch their eyes as they go through it. And if it's not designed well, you'll find their eyes are chasing all over the page. If it is designed well, you'll see their eyes just zoom in on where you want them to, what you want them to see. Eliminate navigation, as Howard mentioned. Shrinking the header graphic. I find that oftentimes people get locked into that graphic. It's the corporate graphic. It's used everywhere else in the site. Think about just getting rid of it entirely. Maybe your landing page just has a small logo, unclickable, at the top left-hand corner of the page. Gives you more real estate because you've got a lot to communicate above the fold. And so get rid of anything that isn't absolutely 100% necessary. Buttons, if you can see them from across the room, that you're doing well. I've seen some anecdotal information that's the approach Amazon takes with their buttons. I've also seen some testing where larger buttons and larger fonts in the buttons works better than the small stuff. You want this thing to be blaring out to them because that's what you want them to do. If you do have graphics, if you do have a picture of your product, people expect to be able to click on a graphic. And so you can use this to your benefit. You could, for example, show a larger picture of the graphic. You could bring up product information, but what I recommend is that opens another window. It does not take them away from your website or from that particular page. Just think of having a little pop-up that comes up there that they can quickly close and then resume. And the other thing with the graphic, always have a caption underneath the graphic selling some benefit or explaining some benefit about whatever is in the image. Now, you're getting rid of the header graphic. Sorry, you're getting rid of the navigation, but you do have some information that Google looks to have on landing page, such as privacy, or in some cases, Google expects you to have information about us or contact us. I use the footer for that. But the thing I do about the footer is I don't really want people clicking on the footer because I want them to do what the reason they're coming to that page. I keep the footer below the fold. So I'll put some spaces above the footer to sort of push it down below, just so it's completely out of eyesight. I don't want people to see links because when people see links, they click. Another couple of things I do is I'll put testimonials on the page. Any third-party endorsements or even awards. And Howard, you get a little bit of a contrary opinion on that?
Well, it's more of a note of caution, I think. I just think under the header of selling the offer and not the product. I've seen testimonials and endorsements and award logos overused. To the extent that they're supporting the notion of why you want someone to register for a webinar or download or something, great. But I think to the extent that you overburden your landing page with things like testimonials that fundamentally are selling your company and not the thing that you're trying to get someone to register for, they can work against you. So I wouldn't rule them out entirely. I just think it's something that you need to be kind of cautious about, I suppose. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think, touching on testimonials, if you're going to put testimonials on your landing page, and as I say, I do like having them there, make them really relevant to the service. In other words, you don't want testimonials that say, hey, you guys are awesome, I love you guys. It's, when I use this product, I saved this, or I got this kind of result, so people can really grasp what this product is going to do, and they have a third party essentially confirming it. Privacy statement, as I say, Google oftentimes does require that, so have that as a link in your down in the footer. And then also, getting past this checklist, I also want to make sure conversion tracking's on, as well as making use of Google Analytics, especially the goals and the funnel. And I'm going to talk about those in just a few minutes. But next, what I thought we'd do is we would look at some landing page examples that Howard has been doing with his clients. And so, Howard, I'm going to pass control over to you. You should have it, and you take us from here just now.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if this, there we go. So these are just a handful, I think 3 or 4 examples, and we chose them specifically because they represent different styles of landing pages. And so one of the things that I hope is the takeaway from this is that there is no cookie cutter standard way of designing a landing page, that it really depends on what the objective of the landing page is, the kind of program that you're using it for, and very often the offer and the call to action has a lot to do with the type of landing page, the amount of information presented. IVT is a software company down in LA. They make a webcasting software that allows you to make your own webcasts. This was the destination page for their PPC campaign, and one of the things that I would highlight is that the copy is all in support of the offer, which in this case is an information kit. Down here in the sidebar is information on what is in that kit. Now this is a way, by the way, to, at the risk of being contrary, this is a way to sort of present multiple offers, but do it under the guise of one call to action. So one of the challenges about search is that you're going to reach people that are at different stages of the selling cycle. Some that are just starting their research, some that may be looking for a shortlist or evaluating products. And to the extent you have content and offers that appeal to different stages in the selling cycle, we find that it often works better than not. And so particularly for our high-tech clients, we end up very often taking sort of an information kit approach where we can combine different types of content. But note that it's all labeled and sold as one kit and one offer. All the copy, this selling copy up here is talking about what you can do with the IVT product, but it's sold in the context of the offer. As you'll see, in a free kit, find out how you can do these various things. So notice that we're not really selling IVT and how wonderful the software is, even though we're very clearly talking about the type of functionality that the software presents. Form is front and center. Everything is above the fold. Pretty short form, not a lot of questions. Very successful landing page for this client.
Howard, can you just stay on that page for a second? Because I got a couple of relevant questions here that just came in. One was, do you always recommend having a button, like a register now button, or are there circumstances where you'd use a bolded text link instead? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I think my take is you want to make it big and prominent, but what's your take?
We always include buttons as a matter of course. So now that I don't know if that's from habit or what we've shown to work. As someone that was schooled in the direct mail days more years ago than I care to mention, one of the old school direct mail principles was to include, multiple calls to action, early and often. So frankly, there's nothing wrong with, for example, in this landing page, you could have, let's say, download my free kit, for example, those words underlined and have them be a free link, a link as well as the buttons. So, but I think buttons play a role, and echoing some of the points you made earlier, they provide a very kind of intuitive call to action in and of themselves. So I would vote pretty strongly for having them at all times. Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
You're welcome. Let's see. This is a very different site. This is actually a web microsite, a term we use for a landing page that also has other kind of peripheral pages attached to it, but is still very much a self-contained site and different from the corporate website. GuardID, this is actually, I must confess, a couple of years old. They've changed their name since. But GuardID at the time marketed this USB thumb drive that stored your personal passwords for your banking and shopping sites. So it was a way to prevent ID theft and things like that. And the call to action here is a free trial for which you needed to provide your credit card. So in terms of, as offers go on the spectrum of offers, pretty high commitment level. You're asking for a lot from the visitor. And because of that, we want to present a pretty good critical mass of information. So unlike, for example, the IVT example, where we're just asking someone to download a white paper, pretty low bar. Here we're asking for credit cards where we want them to trial the product. And so we need to present more information. So behind the Learn More tab, this is not clearly a live image, is another, I think about 9 or 10 pages in total, everything from FAQs to system requirements to testimonials to a lot of other information addressing possible objections and possible questions that people might have about the product. Notice, however, that that information is behind the home page, because what we didn't want to do is present all that information on one page and force people to scroll in order to get that information. We wanted to present something that was clean and simple, and if they read this information and they were ready to go, the button was right here and they could go immediately to the registration form. But by the same token, if they needed more information, they could click on the tab and find out more. And every page elsewhere on this microsite linked back very prominently to the registration page. And again, this was all self-contained. Very successful landing page for this firm. Let's see. This is a landing page for a company called Quova. They're in the Bay Area, a software company. They make what's called IP geolocation software. So if you've ever been on a website and seen an ad for, let's say, a restaurant that's near you and wondered how they know where you are, it's software like Quova's that allows that site to identify your IP address and connect that IP address with a location, thereby enabling them to serve up local advertising. The issue for Quova in the context of their search campaign for which this was designed is that when people are searching for IP geolocation software, they potentially have any number of different uses in mind. So one is local advertising, which I mentioned, which is the copy here in the center. But e-commerce sites use this software to prevent fraud. So if you're Amazon.com and someone's ordering a computer to ship to New York, but your software says they're located in California, that's a red flag. If you run a offshore gambling site and you can't display your site to anyone that's located in the U.S. because you'll be in trouble if you do, you could be using this software for what would generically be called compliance. So there's a lot of different applications, and we didn't want to create one page that would attempt to cover all bases, because we knew if we did that, that any one person coming to that page would see probably 2/3 of the information that was completely irrelevant to them. So what we created in this instance, again, as an illustration of how different landing pages apply to different situations, was what we called a gateway page. It basically asks people to, in essence, self-identify, based on these different applications, and then each one of these copy blocks linked to a landing page that was specific to that application, be it fraud, local advertising, or compliance. The risk in taking this approach, just to be clear, is that it does add an extra step to the process. So I certainly wouldn't recommend this across the board, but there are instances, Clovis being one of them, where an approach like this might make sense. And then lastly, this is a landing page for a company called QlikTech. They're out of Boston, and they make business intelligence software. This is actually a landing page that's designed for an email campaign, and I want to include it here in order to illustrate the point that different types of programs require different levels of information. If you're using a landing page as the back end for, let's say, an email or even, let's say, a direct mail campaign, you don't need to present a lot of information on the landing page. In fact, to the extent you do, you might sort of cause people to hesitate and you'll lose conversions as a result. Once someone either enters that URL from the direct mail or clicks on the link in the email, the chances are pretty good they're sold on your offer. And that's different from PPC, where clicks can, let's face it, be fairly instinctual, spur of the moment, and it's likely that you have to present enough information to really sell someone on the offer. So here's a landing page that follows a lot of the same basic principles in terms of selling the offer, no links, etc. But it's fairly clean, fairly simple, and doesn't spend a lot of time kind of reselling someone on the offer. So just something worth mentioning.
All right, thanks.
I think that's yours, Frank. Yep.
Yep, I'll bring this back here. And I'm just going to spend a couple of minutes on landing page tracking. There are multiple methods of tracking conversions and activities on your landing pages, all really important because they tell you, just how well it's performing, and then how, in addition, how well it feeds into your sales funnel. Obviously, you can turn on AdWords conversion tracking within Google AdWords. If you're not using that, I highly recommend you get that on right away. Very simple to do. There are third-party tools such as Omniture and WebTrends for tracking landing page activity. But the one I'm going to spend some time on is one that's a favorite of mine, Google Analytics. It's free. It's very good. I use it for a couple of things. First of all, I use the site overlay to see what percentage of links or what the percentage breakdown is of the clicks and the various links on a landing page. I mentioned that earlier. I found Google's site overlay to be a bit spotty. I highly recommend crazyegg.com. It's a service that does the site overlay, and the great thing about it is you can use it for free. There's also like a $9 a month option. I find I've used the free. I use it for 1 month at $9, and I get a ton of information about what's going on my landing page, just what exactly is being clicked on.
Frank, what does Crazy Egg provide over and above Google Analytics?
I believe it's well. My take on it is it's more accurate. I found oftentimes when I run site overlay on with Google Analytics that it comes back and tells me nothing got any clicks, or sometimes I'll get results, sometimes I won't. It just doesn't seem to be a consistent performer. But Crazy Egg nails it, and the great thing about it is live, it's real time, whereas Google Analytics is always delayed. All that you need to do is put a little bit of JavaScript on your landing page, and boom, you're done. You'll start getting data within a couple of minutes. It's that fast. So that's dealing with just tracking the clicks on the landing page, and hopefully if you get rid of all the navigation, do the things that Howard had mentioned, there's only going to be the clicks for the register now or the key activity. But what I want to focus now on are profiles, goals, and funnels. Because when you want to track information on your landing page, it's best to set up goals, and the goal being going from that landing page through to the thank you, which essentially is taking people through that funnel. One thing that I found recently is that when you have a profile within Google Analytics, you can only have 4 goals. So if you have a goal for each of your landing page and you have like half a dozen landing pages, then you're going to have to create a couple of profiles. And that's easy enough to do, pretty easy to set up, and then within those set up the goals to cover all your landing pages. Once you've done that, what you're then going to see are the funnels for each of them. Now you'll notice here the URL, in this case, this is one of our clients. I've got 4 URLs that are exactly the same. That's because this is the end result. This is like the thank you page. They actually come in over here on different landing pages, but they all end up in the same place. So let's look at a couple of examples. I set these up actually last week, so you're going to see some real data here. Let's move forward. Here we go. So this was this is the funnel. This is the landing page here, and there were 3 steps in the funnel before you actually get to the bottom of it. And for those of you who haven't seen a goal funnel, a goal visualization, essentially what it says is this is coming in, and these are the people who exited. These are the numbers who exited. And right away here you can see 882 came in, 575 went out, and only 35% actually made it to step 2. Worse, 23% made it to step 3, and then through to the end. So the end result was 3.5% of the 882 actually made it all the way through and did a conversion. If I didn't have this funnel in place, I wouldn't know where it was broken down. The landing page is clearly a problem. The step 2 is clearly a problem. This one probably isn't so bad, but these are the places I'm going to attack. And over on the right-hand side here, I've hidden it, but this actually tells you where people went. This says that 21 people clicked on this link on the landing page, so I have to go back there and figure out what's going on. But great information to see. Now that was one landing page. I had another landing page I set up, a landing page funnel I set up as well last week. This was actually a really good one. I had 150 people coming in, 68% made it through to the second step, then 64 to the third. Not as many made it through to the last part, so we've got to fix that. But again, the great thing is I see where it's broken and I know where to go and fix it. And incidentally, I found this a terrific tool to show to management to get action taken on landing pages, because you're going to find, and I'm going to touch on this in a minute, you're going to find roadblocks when you try to work on landing pages. It could be resource issues that you can't get, but when you're able to say to the CEO, we're paying $5 a click, and right away here we're losing 49 times 5, because the landing page isn't quite right. Or if you think of the other example, when I was losing over, 65% of the people, it's a great thing to show, and I found when I show that, actions happen. Taking the funnel one step further, on your landing page you often have registration forms. You can put Google Analytics code in that form, in each field in the form, and Google Analytics will give you a funnel visualization similar to we just saw with the landing page, but this time it's a visualization for the actual form. And I did a little expansion here, but if we look on the left, I know it's small. This has this is a demo form. This was the first name field. This was the last name field, the country, the city, etc. There were many, many, many fields in here. But what we found was when we got to the email, there was actually a large drop-off. So people filled in each of these. They came down, email address, they stopped. And I've expanded it here now. What we actually did was we put the privacy statement right beside the email address field. And the result was we are now have 79% flowing through into the next step. Before, I believe that was half of it. So the funnels within Google Analytics, excellent things to use, and I really encourage you to do that. In terms of roadblocks that you'll come across when you're doing a landing page, first of all, there's sometimes that one-off mindset that I talked about earlier, lack of resources. If you're stuck for resources, I of course highly recommend Howard and Connect Direct. You may find that I had to put a plug in for you, Howard.
Thank you.
You may find that IT is an issue. IT have a lot of things going on, and landing pages are further down the list. But if you can put the landing page issues into tangible dollars, just as I talked about earlier, that's kind of a good way of getting some action. Another thing you come across is sales requesting too many form fields. This is a continual battle between sales and marketing. Sales wants to capture as much information as possible, but of course the more fields you have in the forms, then the more people who will drop off. So the marketing on the other side are saying, okay, we only want 2 or 3 names. Using that visualization will help you find where people do fall off. And what you can also do is you could have 2 different landing pages with different forms on it and just run a test against one another using Google's website optimizer. One final one is the desire to turn a landing page into a catch-all page. Howard addressed that earlier, not wanting to put too much information into it. Use multiple landing pages if that in fact is an issue. So what I want to do now is get into the landing page critiques. As I mentioned, some of you were very generous to send in your pages.
I thought you were going to say brave.
Well, it depends. I was going to say, Howard, you got to put on your gloves here.
I'll be gentle, yeah.
Be gentle. All right, here we go. Howard, it's all yours.
Thank you. Let's see. Okay, here we go. So yeah, as Frank says, thanks to everyone that submitted these. I think we've got maybe 3 or so. This first one is for a company called Credco. I will not pretend to know much about their company and what they do, but this landing page for me illustrates some of the points that we've been talking about, particularly relative to links and too many options on the page. So I think it's professionally designed, it's attractive. Things I like about it is the form is front and center. Well, not quite center, but at least it's above the fold. It's fairly visible. It's a short form. But for me, the issues start with this header and what looks to be customer login, a search box, and then a nav bar, which is almost certainly part of the corporate web template. And I don't think any of this is really, I mean, this entire header could just go away for my money and then start with the picture here. So there's also a bunch of links here in terms of other resources. This is an example of, and fairly typical, I must say, of a company, and I don't mean to just make broad assumptions here, but it looks like it's sort of a product page from the corporate website that's been sort of co-opted as a landing page. And I think there's a lot of good copy here, but for me, I don't know about you, Frank, but I think it just could be streamlined a great deal, and a lot of kind of this extraneous information, links, options removed to where it's primarily focusing on this one form over here, which presumably is the desired call to action.
Yeah, I agree. I think the one thing when I looked at this page at first was I didn't get what it was about. Even the copy, if you're not getting credit advantage, you're only getting part of the picture. I think the one thing to keep in mind with your landing pages is, what's in it for me. The person who's coming to your page is looking for something that you promised in that pay-per-click ad, and you want to hit them with it right away. Credit advantage, get a complete picture. It's a bit vague. I think it could be tighter copy, like you said.
Well, that's a really good point, because as I'm thinking about this in the context of a search campaign, one has to wonder what the terms would be that would be driving someone to this page, right? Because the copy is fairly, assuming credit advantage is the name of the product, right? The copy is fairly product-centric, as opposed to utilizing more terminology that presumably would be part of the keyword list. Right.
Right, and as I look down here, they're talking about validating more prospects. I mean, this is the meat. This is really, I think, what should be up here. Just before you move on, Howard, I do want to touch this one, the button, the submit button. Please don't use submit on your button text. Use text that describes what they're going to get. In other words, yes, send me my my credit
free kit,
free kit or something like that. Don't be afraid to have a big button here with that text on it. But submit, throw submit out. Okay, I think
Yeah, well, in a similar vein, and then we'll leave this this poor landing page alone. But the one other thing, and this is probably possibly at the level of quibbling, but in a similar vein to what you're saying, Frank, the request information.
Oh, yes.
That's a real no-no for me, and that's not just landing pages. That's direct marketing in general. Be specific. Describe your offer in very specific, tangible forms. When you look at this, you really don't know what you're signing up for. And maybe that's just me as a relative layman for this kind of stuff, but I don't know if I'm, am I getting information, a brochure, a DVD? Am I going to fill this out and someone's going to call me? So the more specific your call to action, the better.
The better, yeah. Good.
Yeah. So
Moving
on to the next.
Puppet dog.
Yeah, the sock puppet. I got to say, I really like this, and not just because of the sock puppet, but I really, it's very visually arresting for a multitude of reasons. It's self-contained. There's not a lot of links, if any, to elsewhere onto the corporate site. I mean, the copy itself, for me, is very action-oriented, using action verbs, outperform, sign up and save, etc. The form is front and center. There's that request information again, which I would change. But other than that, I think this really works well. If I were to quibble, I might have an issue with white text reversed out against an orange background. And there's a learn more here, but I'm only going to assume that this takes me to like a pop-up window or something. But other than that, boy, for me, not much to complain about here. I think this is really a good landing page. So would you agree?
Yeah, again, the other thing there, I just say again, that submit button.
Your pet peeve.
The pet peeve today. And yeah, other than that, I think it looks good. I hope it's performing well. But this looks great.
I like that a lot. And I think we might have another one. This is Trend Micro, which a company that I have some familiarity with, a global, I think, vendor of security software. This, again, I think is very much kind of in the category of web pages that have been made to fulfill a function for which they were not designed, i.e. this to me smacks of a product page. It may be a product page on the corporate website that is being used as a landing page, and there's just way too much going on. There's no real immediate and single call to action. It looks in the sidebar here that there's a lot of different options for me: read customer stories, download, add on, watch video, etc. But it's distracting, it's a little confusing, and that's not to say that individually the information contained here isn't valuable and compelling, but there needs to be, for my money, much more focus. Get rid of the nav bar, a lot of the things that we've talked about. So there's a landing page in here somewhere. But it really needs to be much more self-contained, streamlined, focused, and really driving a call to action rather than attempting to provide all the information you possibly could about a product. In fairness, this is probably one of those companies and products that has a very broad product line. And I've got to think if someone's searching on endpoint security, and I'll pretend to know more about this than I really do. Like the Quova example, it's likely that people can have very different needs under that general category. So maybe part of this is in light of that. In other words, we're trying to sort of cover the bases. But even then, it's just too much information for me.
Yeah, actually, on that point, Howard, I think one of my sort of pet peeves on landing pages is font size. And this one, it's too small in my viewpoint. A lot of people, especially in the IT business, they're probably, basically, in 40s and older, but basically when people are 40s and above, trust me, there are eyesight issues, and this one is too small. So even if you do turn it into a landing page, I'm thinking back to the sock puppet a minute ago. Their fonts were big. You want people to easily read what you're trying to do here.
And don't you think there's a different standard for that for corporate websites versus landing pages? Because for corporate websites, someone coming to you through organic search or that's on the website of their own initiative is kind of more incented, more motivated, more driven to read the information that's there. But as you said early on, with a landing page, you have a couple of seconds to grab people. And if there's anything standing in the way of them doing that, font size possibly being one of them. Now we have shrunk down this image somewhat, so in real life it might be a little larger. But even then, yeah, I take your point.
Okay, that I think is the last item to critique. I'm just going to move it on to a couple of questions. We've actually just got a couple minutes left here. I'm going to run through a quick couple of questions, Howard, and I'll throw one over to you. Going back to the graphics, somebody asked a question. Could they use a lightbox effect for clickable graphics? In other words, you click on it, and a little lightbox comes up. That would work great. Next question was on testimonials. This person had said his anecdotal evidence suggests that most customers think testimonials are faked anyway. I think that there's definitely part of that. I can only speak from my personal experience is that when I see testimonials that are really detailed, then I tend to listen up a lot more and look at them a lot more carefully.
We tend to use testimonials very often. We work with a lot of startup clients, technology firms that are in kind of nascent product categories, and no one's heard of the company, no one's heard of the product, no one even knows this kind of solution exists. And in those situations, I think testimonials have more application and are more important because there's a need for third-party validation of what it is we're presenting on the page. So I don't think that there's so much cynicism that people just dismiss them out of hand. So if in the right situations, I wouldn't hesitate to use them. But as I expressed earlier, we tend to be kind of cautious about that stuff because we think it departs from selling the offer.
Okay. I've got two quickies I'm going to take care of, then I've got a good one to finish with. First of all, there's a question, will this presentation be available afterwards? Yes, it will be sent out to you in the next couple of days. You'll get a PDF of this presentation. The next question was, what do you think of a product called Smarter Stats? I've actually not used Smarter Stats myself. Howard, do you know anything about it?
I don't know. I would defer to you on that, Frank.
Okay, that was you're deferring to the wrong person. All right, so here's the last one. This is a good one. This gentleman says, I've seen several landing pages like GuardID that offer a free trial. However, the ones I've seen offer no information that was available as to the cost after the free trial. The only way to move forward was to divulge personal information. I exited after that. How do you deal with those kind of informations? Or do you find the lack of cost after trial not to be an issue? And actually, we're inside the last 2 minutes, Howard. So if you can give me a short answer.
Well, I think that's an issue, and I would, if a client came to us and with a GuardID. Now, I have to be honest. I'm not sure if that information was divulged elsewhere on the GuardID microsite or not. But I would suggest that be something that was available on the microsite if people wanted to know, that it didn't require filling out the form, because I think the gentleman's right. It could be a barrier to registration, and I think it's not something you trumpet on the first page, right, because you don't want to turn people off.
Yeah.
But for the few people that would want to know, and it's the piece of information that's going to stop them from filling out the form, I think you make it available. But it's kind of a separate page, perhaps, or it's somewhere on the site. So no, I think it's an issue. I think it's something that does need to be addressed.
Howard, I want to thank you for a really enjoyable webinar this morning. I appreciate you taking the time in preparing, practicing with this with me, and then delivering a great insights into landing pages. Howard, as I mentioned, Connect Direct. I've been working with Howard for about 13, 14 years, and he's just a terrific guy, and also his company is excellent too. So if you need services such as Howard provides, then please contact him. That's it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you.